Long-term care can be confusing. Tonight on The Best Times, we get advice from a long-term care advocate. We'll also examine a revolution in nursing home care called the Greenhouse Project. And you'll find out what happens when you die with debt. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Cris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. One of the realities of dealing with life after 50 is the threat of a debilitating disease or a catastrophic injury affecting a loved one. Imagine this scenario. One of your aging parents falls and breaks their hip. Surgery is required, followed by post-op recovery. And then one morning, you're surprised when hospital administrators tell you they'll be discharging your parent the day after tomorrow, and they ask you what nursing home you've chosen. You've gone from one crisis to another. How do you select the right nursing home? What are your choices? And how will you pay for this? These are just a few of the questions that make up the nursing home puzzle. AARP has issued what they call a long-term care scorecard for this year. They evaluate long-term care services state by state. And this year, the good news is Tennessee was one of only 2 states that showed an improvement in their long-term care score. The bad news is that only moved us up from 48th to 47th on the list. So help me put this in perspective. What does this scorecard mean?
I think we can look at this scorecard from the perspective of a state's approach to the needs of individuals, the needs of a community, when it comes to an adjustment with age and health. When I think of long-term care, I think of care associated with health care. There are certainly many other aspects of or interpretations of the concept of long-term care. When it comes to nursing homes, I think it's important to realize that nursing homes have the opportunity to provide a great deal of healing and an opportunity for people to move from one stage or level of need to a less restrictive level of need. And I think this is something to keep in mind.
Let's talk about a couple of misconceptions that people have about long-term care. Misconception number 1, that very few people will need long-term care. I probably won't need long-term care in my lifetime.
You know, it's interesting. We had mentioned that long-term care in many ways can be referred to as nursing home care. We should also keep in mind that nursing home care can be divided into different levels of care as well, which includes skilled nursing care, or other people refer to it as rehab, and then other being long-term nursing home care, subacute care. But the concept of who will need it and what's available, what will be available, although it's difficult to forecast really what the needs are going to be, I think that there are ways of looking at what the needs could be and perhaps where resources could be directed a little bit further on.
Second misconception, Medicare pays for long-term care.
Medicare pays for nursing home care as skilled nursing, and there are parameters, there are qualifications in terms of being admitted into a skilled nursing facility, meaning separate from the long-term aspect.
But Medicare only pays for a limited number.
Maximum.
A maximum number of days.
Of 100 days, and that's per admission.
And once you've exhausted the 100 days of Medicare, you're on private pay, correct?
If a person has come in with Medicare, I think there may be an additional misconception that after Medicare is either private pay or go home. But that's not really the case, not necessarily, particularly with the Choices program that exists, that an application can be made for long-term care insurance. There are 3 groups. Group 1 is for nursing home level of care.
And this is through the Choices program here in the state of Tennessee?
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
All right. Let's talk about that day where you, as a spouse or as a son or a daughter, face the prospect of having to, perhaps on the spur of the moment, as I indicated in my opening, have to look for a nursing home. You're in the crisis of having to find a place to put your parent or loved one. How do you go about choosing a facility?
Take a deep breath. Take notes, but don't allow someone to push you into making a hasty decision. If you feel like you don't have the right information about making a choice, if you feel that something's not quite right about this particular placement or that particular placement, you have the opportunity to speak to people who are in the business, if you will, and also for agency representatives. The Ombudsman program is certainly available as well. I would encourage that people look at the Medicare.gov, the comparison website, which can give an indication, a very good indication, as to how facilities and the level of care and other issues as well compare one to another. It won't necessarily tell you what's in the best location for you. It won't necessarily tell you that the facility with this rehab has better outcomes than this facility with this rehab for this particular type of need. If somebody can go walk into a facility, look around, perhaps meet with the administrator of the facility. Of course, yes, the admissions office, but the administrator can give a very good indication as to what level of communication they might expect once their family member becomes a resident there.
What specifically is your role as the Ombudsman?
The Long-Term Care Ombudsman program was established by Congress. The role of the Ombudsman is to support the rights and the dignity of residents of long-term care facility. As the district ombudsman, or the local ombudsman as it's referred to in the regulations, I have the opportunity and the obligation to accept complaints regarding anything from quality of care, if there is a question in terms of medication management, if there is an issue related to the menu, the diet, the choice of doctors. I can receive these complaints, if you will, and also can observe them. But our program, since it is resident directed, I, as the ombudsman, will look to the resident for the direction in terms of how they would like for resolution to be achieved.
Is it fair to characterize you as a resident advocate?
I think advocate is a good term. Yes, actually the term ombudsman is a Swedish term, but it does relate to an advocate.
What are the rights of residents in long-term care?
Residents have the right to be free from abuse and neglect and financial exploitation. Residents have the right to choose what level of care they'll receive, what type of treatments they'll accept. When they don't want to have a certain kind of treatment, medication, they have that right to refuse. Residents have the right to good quality care day in, day out, weekends and nights, by a staff at the facility that is a staff that has an interest in their well-being and takes their responsibility very clearly, very seriously in terms of working for these residents. These are just a few of the rights, but yes, these are among them.
If an individual has a complaint, what should they do?
Contact the ombudsman. But this is not the idea of something's wrong, we need to reach out to everybody. The fact of the matter is one of the things that we will ask in terms of the ombudsman program is, who have you spoken to at the facility? If there's someone who has given some helpful information, where is the facility at that point in terms of moving forward with resolving that complaint? If the facility has not addressed the situation, then we can certainly get involved. But also if there's a fear of retaliation, so that an individual might be concerned not to contact the administration or anyone else at the nursing home, certainly they should feel comfortable to contact us. And if there are concerns of abuse or neglect, they should contact Adult Protective Services.
Let's talk about the future, because we know the generation of baby boomers is going to swell the numbers of the older population in this country. What does that hold for the future when we're talking about long-term care?
So the future, again, is a difficult item to really pin down. But if we want to take a look at the concept of arrangements for health care that are established on a multi-tiered level, say where an insurance provider may be responsible for providing authorizations for hospital procedures, authorizations for nursing home, for skilled nursing level of care, perhaps even authorizations for home health care. These allow for some flexibility. Also, there's better understanding of what an individual's needs might be as there's a transition from one level of care to the next. That communication, I think, is going to be more important. I think we're going to see much more of it. And I think we'll also see much more sense of responsibility when it comes to protecting that information as well.
Well, thank you very much for being on The Best Times.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris.
For advice and counsel on long-term care issues, contact the District Ombudsman Program, which is one of 9 programs funded by MIFA. You can also reach out to the Aging Commission of the Mid-South. The U.S. Census Bureau reports that just over 5% of Americans 65 plus live in a nursing home or assisted living environment. With 78 million baby boomers aging, that means nearly 4 million people will be living in nursing homes in the future. In fact, there is about a 1 in 4 chance that you will need some sort of skilled nursing care in your lifetime. Most of us aren't prepared for that future. But are today's nursing homes prepared, or do they need a makeover? One doctor thought it was time to wipe the slate clean and start over again. Tonight on The Best Times, we examine the nursing home revolution he started. It's called the Greenhouse Project. This is the view inside almost any nursing home. A long corridor with rows of semi-private and private rooms. The daily schedule is regimented. The institutionalized atmosphere conveys the sterility of a hospital. Dr. Bill Thomas, a geriatrician from upstate New York, worked in this sort of environment and felt the time had come for a change. He developed a radical idea: abolish the nursing home.
Let's take a clean slate, and what can we do to make this not, this institution not institutional? And so he came up with the greenhouse homes, and by bringing residents together in a smaller cottage-like setting, it really brings them to life. They get to know each other, the families get to know a smaller group of people, and more importantly, the staff, our Shabazz, in dealing with the residents, they get to know each other better. And that makes for a very communal type of situation that benefits both the staff and our elders.
The first greenhouse project was built in 2004 by Methodist Senior Services in Tupelo, Mississippi. Today, there are 185 greenhouse homes in 28 states. One such site is Ave Maria Home in Bartlett. In 2005, they were looking to add more beds to their traditional facility, but a trip to Tupelo changed their minds.
And when we saw these, we were like, why would we want to just make another institution? This gives the residents so much more privacy, dignity, and self-determination than anything that we could build.
Ave Maria opened their greenhouse homes in 2012. There are 4 freestanding cottages housing 10 residents each. No long corridors, no institutional environment. 10 individual rooms open onto a communal area, creating a home-like atmosphere.
From a physical standpoint, there's a den, a living room, individual, resident rooms, and the great convivium that happens at dining during the dining times, that is what is so important, is that the residents get to be together and talk about things during the day. This, are things that have happened or will happen, and there's a great sense of community in a smaller atmosphere.
In keeping with the home-like atmosphere, daily life in a greenhouse is marked by freedom of choice.
If I was living here, my day would start with when I want to get up and have breakfast. In the institutional model, everyone's going to get up between a certain time, 6:30 and 8, where if I want to sleep in, when I'm 90, I think I'm going to want to sleep in. So you get up when you want to, you have breakfast when you want to. I can read the paper, I can take my time, plan my day. If there's something I want to do at 10 o'clock or 11, fine. If there's not, I've got a book to read, or I can, participate in something, in an activity that's available if I want to. So the day structure is very different. It's on your time. It's not on the provider's time, or it's not on the facility's time. And that's, to me, the biggest advantage to this whole concept.
The greenhouse model also changes the operational functions of traditional nursing homes. Each home is staffed by 10 to 13 certified nursing assistants that are called shabazz in greenhouse terminology. One nurse oversees 2 homes.
The staffing pattern is so much higher with our greenhouse homes than in a regular institutional facility.
The shabazz functions differently than their CNA counterparts in traditional nursing homes. In addition to the usual functions of assisting the elders with all the activities of daily living, the shabazz also cooks all of the daily meals, washes the elders' clothes, and performs light cleaning chores. If one of the elders wants a midnight snack, the shabazz is there to serve them. This level of care creates a bond between the residents and the staff.
You have more time to spend with the residents, yes, so you learn more about them and they learn more about you. It's more one-on-one care.
A 2007 study published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society concluded that greenhouses were a promising model to improve quality of life for nursing home residents. But does this highly personal care and home-like environment come at a high price? Studies have shown the cost of greenhouse homes matches the median for nursing homes nationally. Ave Maria accepts both Medicare and Medicaid, as well as private pay for their greenhouse residents. Management at Ave Maria have been so impressed with the results of their greenhouse experiment that they will be breaking ground to add 5 more homes with 12 residents each. Their traditional nursing facility will cease to exist.
We've given our elders a chance to live again, and in a way that if they need help, it's there, but it's not overpowering, if that makes sense. It's more of a empowering them to live again in a way that they may have been used to in the community, and this kind of, the greenhouse kind of helps them blossom.
Jean Morgan has been living in her greenhouse home for several months now. She told me that her surroundings made her feel comfortable, like she was back in her college dormitory again.
It's a place to come and live. I mean, to make your home. You know, you refer to it, this is my home now.
What happens to our personal property after we die? No one likes to dwell on that thought, and maybe that's why a recent internet survey revealed that nearly 60% of Americans don't have a will. Should you have a will? What happens if you die without one? Here are some answers. What is a will?
A will is a legal document which transfers assets at death. It also names an executor of your estate, and if you have minor children, it names a guardian over your minor children.
Who should have a will?
Everyone should have a will, but primarily people with assets in excess of $50,000, because that's the limit to where you either have to go to probate or not go to full probate. People with minor children should have a will. People that may have a beneficiary who is disabled with a special needs needs to have a will. Persons that have beneficiaries that are spendthrifts, people that will spend anything they receive on the first day they receive it, probably needs to have a last will and testament.
What if you die without a will?
As I tell everybody, how many people have a will, and they raise their hand, I'll say, how many people don't have a will, and they may not raise their hand. I say, well, you still have an estate plan. And that estate plan is determined by the state that you live in. If you live in Tennessee, it's determined by the state of Tennessee. If you die intestate without a last will and testament, then it increases the cost of the probate process and increases the time delay of the probate process. For example, if you die without a will, you'll have to post bond. Your beneficiaries will have to have appraisals of all the property. Your beneficiaries will have to do an inventory of all the property, and then they'll have to do accountings, annual accountings of the income and expenses. All those things cost money, and as a result, decreases the amount of assets that get transferred to your beneficiaries.
What is probate?
Probate in Latin means to prove. So when someone passes away, you're either proving that they have a valid last will and testament in court, or if they don't have a will, you're proving who their heirs at law are. It is a court process which takes time and costs money.
Are there different types of wills?
There are two basic types of wills. One's called an attested and one's called a holographic will. An attested will is the will you're going to get if you go to a lawyer. It's going to be a typewritten document. It's going to need to be signed by the testator. It's going to need to be witnessed by at least 2 witnesses. And probably also the witnesses' signatures will be notarized on the back, what they call a self-proving affidavit, so that when you pass away, we don't have to bring the witnesses to court or find the witnesses to bring them to court to testify. The second type of will is a holographic will. A holographic will is a will wholly in the handwriting of the person making out the will. Doesn't need a witness, doesn't need a notary, but it does require the signature, the full signature of the person making the will.
Can you write your own will?
And as I tell my clients, yes, you can buy a form will. And the forms are perfectly valid and perfectly legal. However, the issue is they have blanks, and what do you put in the blanks? And that's normally why you would need a lawyer to help you to fill in the blanks.
What are the advantages of using a lawyer?
Well, first of all, you get a professional that's preparing the document for you. You also have a professional that is basically stating to you that this document will be valid. And if it happens to be not valid, then you have a professional to rely upon to make it valid.
How much does a lawyer charge?
Some lawyers charge by the hour. Some lawyers charge a fixed fee. All right? If you interview a lawyer, you want to ask them, how do they charge for their services? You need to know that. And all lawyers should be able to tell you how they charge. Most clients or people probably prefer a fixed fee because it's a known as versus an unknown. Most time when you go to Walmart to go shopping, you're going to go and you're going to see the price on the shelf, whatever store you go to. I think that should also apply to estate planning with lawyers. What the fee is going to be dependent upon what type of estate plan or will that you need. People with a simple estate is going to pay less. People with a complex estate is going to pay more.
Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Cris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. AARP has issued what they call a long-term care scorecard for this year. They evaluate long-term care services state by state. And this year, the good news is Tennessee was one of only 2 states that showed an improvement in their long-term care score. The bad news is that only moved us up from 48th to 47th on the list. So help me put this. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. They'll be discharging your parent the day after tomorrow, and they ask you what nursing home you've chosen. You've gone from one crisis to another. How do you select the right nursing home? What are your choices? And how will you pay for this? These are just a few of the questions that make up the nursing home puzzle. Hello, I'm Cris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. One of the realities of dealing with life after 50 is the threat of a debilitating disease or a catastrophic injury affecting a loved one. Imagine this scenario. One of your aging parents falls and breaks their hip. Surgery is required, followed by post-op recovery. And then one morning, you're surprised when hospital administrators tell you long-term care can be confusing. Tonight on The Best Times, we get advice from a long-term care advocate. We'll also examine a revolution in nursing home care called the Greenhouse Project. And you'll find out what happens when you die with debt.